Take people mission like daily. I got a big boat, this is crazy. The life that I'm living's amazing. Fuck being famous, the river's my mainstream. Got more hooks in them than Swaley. Yeah, shout out to Shady. This life is so crazy. Catching world records, baby. Yeah, Nature Fellas Podcast. Welcome to the podcast. Nature Fellas Podcast. Welcome to the podcast. This efficient podcast. Yeah.
And we're live. All right. Welcome to the second episode of the Nature Fellows podcast. Today I am joined by a very cool guest. This guy's a lifetime Hudson's Hope resident. He's lived all around the world in the Arctic, been on some very cool adventures, and I'd like to welcome Arne Anderson. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine. A little apprehensive, but I'm okay.
Good. Glad to hear. Yeah, thank you for coming on. I know you sent me a story there you wrote a while back, and I know you've been doing lots of writing, so I'm pretty excited to hear some stories today. But before we get into that, do you want to tell us about your background a little bit?
Yeah. Born in northern Saskatchewan and grew up there basically till I was 14. I grew up on a farm. My father was not a big farmer. He didn't have an awful lot of land, and at one point, 1967, when I was roughly 14, he decided he'd had enough farming and he was moving to BC.
Nice.
So it wasn't a bad move for me. It's, the province of BC has been, well, ideal for me as far as my lifestyle and my love of the mountains and hunting, and I've never been sorry that they made that move.
For sure.
I was back to Saskatchewan probably only twice since 1967.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I went back there once for a whitetail hunt.
That's some big bucks over there.
Yeah, they do have some good whitetail. I actually went back within about a year of having moved away from there, just to kind of go back and see, school buddies and stuff. But then it was a long time before I went back for that whitetail hunt, and then I haven't been back since.
So how old were you when you moved to BC?
Yeah, I think, I was actually under 14, because I was in a little 3-room school in Saskatchewan, in a little town called Hagen, between Birch Hills and St. Louis, southeast of Prince Albert, actually.
Wow.
And when we moved to Kelowna, Knox Mountain Secondary School was a pretty big school.
Yeah. Took some getting used to.
Yeah, I think I went to school for about 10 days.
Perfect. That's all you need.
I decided, I think I'm done school.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I really wasn't old enough to quit, and but they knew that they saw that I was going to quit as soon as I hit the age anyway. So
perfect.
So they just let me quit, and then. I'll jump ahead a lot to say that decades later, when I went to work for BC Hydro here at Hudson's Hope, I came to the realization that I needed grade 12.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to go back to college and get my, what they call GED.
Yeah, I've heard of that before, for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So you lived in Kelowna, is that right?
Yeah, I lived in Kelowna from 67 until 72 with my parents there. And then at 19 years of age, my brother was already working in the Arctic in Inuvik for about a year, I guess, before I did. And so he kind of talked me into coming up there and working for this company out of Edmonton, Cavan Construction. And I just went up as a laborer. So let's see, that was, just got to think here. That was September 21st, 1972.
That's a good memory. That's a guy would have remembered that.
Yeah, so that
Wow.
was when I went up there at 19 years of age. And then I worked there for, my memory's failing me as far as when I finally decided to apprentice, but I was there for a year or two anyway before kind of my brother Phil talked me into apprenticing
Cool.
in the carpentry trade. And so I had already been working in construction for quite a long time at that point, even in the Okanagan. So
Nice.
I wrote off my first year at Nate in Edmonton there. Just
Yep.
wrote off the first year and then went for 2 months a year for the next 3 years
Nice.
till I had my ticket and my interprovincial, my red seal, so I could work in any province.
Cool. And what kind of stuff were you working on in the Arctic?
We did, well, basically all government projects. We built everything from liquor stores to jails to schools to
The whole town.
3-story office complexes. Yeah, a
Wow.
lot of different things.
Very cool. And were you into the outdoors heavily before you moved to the Arctic, or do you think that was something that?
No, I was a keener as far as hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know you did some pretty cool trips over there in the Arctic. You sent me a story of one of the snowmobile trips you went on over there, and I couldn't imagine going through what you went through in those 2 weeks.
That was it was 12 days, and that was a memory to last a lifetime for certain.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want me to elaborate on that?
Yeah, that'd be great if you don't mind telling that story. It was definitely one of the best reads I've ever had.
Yeah,
so I'm sure I'd like to hear it.
It's kind of long, but I won't be able to hit all the high points I did writing it. But
No, that's fine. We got all the time you need.
yeah, no, that was 1975. So I'd already spent 3 winters working in the Arctic. 3 total years, but I mean, I had experienced 3 cold winters up there.
Yeah.
And this was the 4th one, and I had been only working in Inuvik, and we had been doing the project that I was mostly involved with. There was others going there too, but it was a housing project, and it was everything from duplexes to 8-plex units, and we did 95 units of
Wow.
row housing
A
there.
lot of work.
Yeah, and plus one of them, an 8-plex, was, I want to say, about 90% complete, and it caught fire and burnt to the
Oh,
ground.
no.
They had to rebuild it.
Well, at least it kept you in work, I guess.
So everything up there is built on pilings
Yeah.
because it's permafrost.
Yeah. Cold.
So there was a company called Robert's Rat Hole, and they would drill holes in the permafrost. They'd drill down, I think it was somewhere on the order of 8 feet, and then they had peeled logs, and they'd drop one in the hole
Wow.
and shovel a bunch of dirt in around it and line it up, and
Yeah.
and let it freeze. And
Oh, wow.
and then once everything was drilled and put in place, then get in there with a builder's level and mark elevations and buck them all off and start building beams on them, and
Cool.
that's how they built there.
Very cool.
So anyway, we finished that project, and then the company I was working for was going to build a school in Fort McPherson, and they had sent me over there in the, I would say it was probably in July or August. They'd sent me over to do with another fellow that I was working with, to do an inventory on all the materials that had been brought in on the barge.
Oh, they barged the materials
Barged
in.
them down the Mackenzie River,
Very cool.
from Hay River.
That'd be quite the job alone. I could
Yeah.
imagine doing that.
So we actually, it was, as I recall, it was Trevor Wessel, the young fellow that wound up going on the sled trip with me. It was him and I that went over to do a count on all this material and stuff, and so it was in the middle of the summer, and it was, well, I've got pictures of the sun just kind of setting at about 2:30 in the morning.
Wow.
And then it would just kind of dip below the horizon and then back up again.
Yeah.
And the mosquitoes were so horrific.
I can imagine.
I had a little JanSport 2-man tent there that we were going to sleep in on the right where all this material was stacked on the banks of the Peel River, and we you know, as soon as you unzipped the door, the tent was just full of mosquitoes. But I did have a couple of mosquito coils along. And we found this old boat down in the willows there along the river that looked like it would still float. And so we set a mosquito coil burning inside the tent to kill the ones that were in there, and zipped it up tight. And we went and put this boat in on the river, and we had a couple of paddles there. And we went out in the middle of the Peel River, and the bugs weren't too bad out there.
Oh, well, nice. Perfect.
So we paddled around there probably close to an hour, and then finally, you know, well, I guess we better go back and get some sleep. So we just unzipped that door and dove in and zipped it up again. And then,
I've heard the mosquitoes are supersized up there too.
Yeah,
they seem big.
Well, it's kind of like here, the ones that first show up in the spring are big. They call them the snow mosquitoes, and then
snow mosquitoes. Yeah, gotcha.
But yeah, we did okay because we, you know, there was a few got in, but we left that coil burning a little bit, and they died, and so anyway. That was a day or two, and then we went back to Inuvik, and then we don't just know how long it was after that before they moved me over there to work on this school we were going to build, but spent quite a long time on it anyway, and then through that summer, Trevor was still working in Inuvik, but they had moved me to McPherson. But we had, even before I ever went there, we had kind of cooked up this plan. So the company I worked for, we had to sign a statement when we went up there that we would stay 90 days.
Minimum
90 days. And otherwise, if you wanted to leave sooner, then you paid your own way to Edmonton.
I see. Which was probably not cheap.
No. And there wasn't, the highway, like the Dempster Highway, wasn't finished at that point. So flying was the only way, flying or boat. So anyway, we decided the next turnaround, and we were working 6/10s, but the next time when we were supposed to go out for a week or two, we said, the timing will be just about right for going on the SnowMeile trip, and let's just forego the holiday to the south and
go on a trip.
Go do something.
Yeah, that's never been done before.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had never been done by snowmobile. It had been done by dog team apparently, but so that's it. We talked about it, off and on. And it kind of became a plan, and then when I was coming down to the wire where I would make a decision whether I was flying out or not, then I phoned Trevor in Inuvik and I said, "Are you still into doing this sled trip?" He says, yes, he says, but he said, "I ordered a snowmobile and it hasn't come, it's not showed up." So he had ordered a John Deere snowmobile.
John Deere snowmobile.
John Deere. Back in those days, there was, I don't know how many manufacturers of snowmobiles, but there was a whole raft of them.
Wow.
So the John Deere snowmobile was the first one that was ever a liquid cooled.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they called it the John Deere liquefier.
Sounds like a good machine.
Yeah, it probably would have been.
Yeah.
But it didn't show up. So he said, I want to go, but I'll have to buy a machine from the Hudson Bay store in town.
Yeah.
So he bought a 340 Olympic, and it was one of the first machines with a slide rail suspension. Mine was kind of a different machine too. It was called an Olympic Special, and it didn't have a Rotax engine. It had a BSE engine.
Gotcha.
What is that? British Small Engines, I think it's called.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it had a 440 in it, and the one he bought had a 340, and that one with the BSE, they only sold those in the Arctic. They didn't sell them in southern Canada, so it was kind of a special edition just for the north.
Built for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess so. So that's what I wound up with anyway, and it was the second machine. I had bought one when I first arrived in Inuvik, and then at some point, year before or so, I had headed out of there and didn't think I was coming back, so I shipped my machine south, and it wound up in Kelowna, and
Wow, I see.
then I went back to work again. So I got to buy another one.
Can never have enough skidoos.
No, that first one was one of those. They called it the Silver Bullet, TNT,
Yeah.
and I think, if I recall right, I paid $1,200 for a brand new machine.
And what year was that in?
That would have been in I went there in 72, probably 73.
Still sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Nice. That's pretty
You
cool.
don't buy them for that anymore.
No, definitely not. I wish you could.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so you got
So then I'm in McPherson, and Trevor gets busy, buys himself a new machine from the Hudson Bay store, and then he said, I have to build a Tobogan for all his gear and stuff, and so he recruited an Inuit friend of his, Donnie Allen was his name, and they built a plywood box that was probably 18 or 20 inches wide and 2 feet tall. It was taller than it was wide. 3/4 inch plywood, reinforced the corners in it some, and it was probably 7 feet long, maybe something like that. But the front of it didn't. Oh, and the runners underneath it were 2x4s on the edge,
perfect.
screwed solidly to the 3/4 inch plywood.
Was it pretty tippy, that thing?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was too tippy.
Too tippy,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then they nailed 2-inch or 1.5-inch steel banding on the bottom of them so they wouldn't wear out.
Yeah.
So basically, they just had a curve. These 2x4s had a curve at the front, but the box itself wasn't curved at all. In fact, it was like a big snow shovel. It had a sloping front on it.
Oh, perfect. Made life easy for you, I imagine.
I wound up breaking trail pretty well all the way.
Yeah. So when did you guys leave? So that was so you
It
built
was
this-
late November.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's probably pretty well into winter up there, I imagine.
Oh
at that
yeah.
point. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. By then you're experiencing some -30.
Yep. Some cold
Yeah.
weather.
Yeah.
Cold weather. So how far was this trip exactly that you were?
It was over 300 miles.
Wow.
I think 315 miles,
Wow.
and over the Richardson Mountains. So some tough going.
Yeah,
in places.
I imagine.
Yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah. So we were. He phoned me up and he said, "I got everything ready. I'm gonna come down to McPherson on the Dempster Highway, and in the dark."
Perfect.
And so I said, "Okay, well, we'll wait for about 2 hours, and then we'll drive over to Arctic Red River."
Yeah.
Which was, I think, 35 miles or so, that would cut 35 miles or so off of his trip. And, but I knew he'd be at least a couple hours getting there. So I said, we'll give you a couple hours and then we'll drive over to Arctic Red. Now they call it Sigachik. They renamed it a bunch of years back here, but... So we drove over there, and there was a high hill, and it overlooked the confluence of the Arctic Red River and the Mackenzie. And we parked our 1-ton truck up there, and we sat there and, run the truck to stay warm. And I was tired. I'd been cramming for a long time there to get ready for this. And so I wound up sleeping in the truck. And then this fellow that was with me, Fred Sorensen was his name, and he was a character in the Arctic too. I wished I could elaborate more on him, but he actually had a sort of a logging business at what was that place called? It was further upriver on the Mackenzie. It was south of Arctic Red River. Oh, it was near Fort Good Hope.
Okay.
Anyway, there was a fair bit of timber where he was, and so he was cutting these logs, and they wound up being the pilings that would get shipped to Inuvik for these,
cool.
to build on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Green logs, didn't matter whether they were green or dry. They were going in the permafrost anyway, so they might as well be green. And so he was. I really liked Fred. He was a good character, and so he's sitting there with me, and then finally he woke me up. He says, he's coming now. He's coming. I see his headlights bobbing across the river, or his headlight on his snow machine, and so he showed up, and he was frozen. I mean, he was cold. So we had good heat going in that truck, and he piled in the cab there, and we got out and loaded his snowmobile and his skimmer.
Yeah, his wood box.
on the back, and then drove back to McPherson and got a bit of sleep that night. And then we started the next morning. We started putting our outfit together, and I think it was a day or two that we were busy getting ready there. And finally, we were just about ready to go. I would say it was probably 8, 9 o'clock in the evening. Of course, it'd been dark for a long time at that point. But we're out there loading our gear and everything, and filling 10-gallon drums of gas, and we had organized for a pilot from McPherson to fly. I believe it was 50 gallons. Into a little lake halfway along on our trip there, so we'd have enough fuel to make the trip.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's an old. In those days they called them Lushu. The Indians their name. The tribe was the Lushu, and they've changed that name now. The name won't come to me right now, but anyway, he was an old trapper there, and he showed up, and he's looking at this plywood box that Trevor had built, and he says, "Good for around town, I guess."
Not for a 300-mile trip over the mountains.
No, I thought to myself, I hope nobody told him where we're planning on taking that
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the RCMP showed up. And they were quizzing us. They had, of course, heard we were going, and they were asking about our estimated time to make the trip, and what gear we had, and what route we were taking, and all of that kind of thing. And somebody had loaned us a double-bitted axe. Can't remember who we got that from, but that evening, anyway, we didn't go more than maybe 20, not even 20 kilometers down river to the mouth of the Rat River there, and there was a trapper there that lived there. Him and his wife and daughter were there at that point. So we stopped there, and they had a wall tent set up. They were in a log cabin, but
nice. Well, you'll probably take it at that point.
They put us up in this wall tent, yeah. And we thought, well, we're going to be experiencing a whole lot worse than this. We better get used to it.
Yeah, for sure. So what would you wear in those days back then to stay warm? Like, what was...
Well, I had a big Pioneer goose down 3/4 length parka,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
with a hood, and it was one of those parkas where if you zipped the zipper all the way up, you just had a little tunnel, fur lined tunnel that you could look through out front.
Oh, cool.
It was kind of stuck out.
Yeah.
Didn't make it very easy to turn around and look behind you when
you could see where you were going, though.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And it stayed warm, which is probably the most
Yeah,
important.
that's the thing, and I don't know. I'm trying to remember whether I wore a scarf around my mouth inside that hood or whether I probably did, because it was the warmest night we experienced on that trip was -30.
That was the warmest.
That was the warmest,
Oh my goodness.
and we saw -50.
Wow.
So the Anglican minister there, that was another one. I specifically asked him, I said, while we're gone, would you keep track of the temperatures for us? And, I mean, it would probably vary somewhat where we were and where he was in McPherson, but he said, I'll keep track of it.
Well, anything below -30 is pretty cold
Yeah,
anyway.
when we finally finished, I went and saw him, and he said, you didn't see anything warmer than -30, he said, and you did see -50.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So you got to this wall tent, and that was night 1.
Yeah, that was night 1. Yeah, so
Yeah,
and I remember John Kay was the trapper, Johnny Kay, and his daughter's name was Annie. I'm struggling to remember his wife's name, but another daughter had showed up that had been living in Edmonton, and she came up on holidays, and so there was 4 of them there in that cabin. And I remember sometime during the night, this daughter from Edmonton came into the tent there, and I don't know what she was doing, but she woke us up anyway.
very nice.
So we went in the morning into the cabin, and they gave us some directions which way to go there, and they kind of told us of a shortcut rather than taking the Rat River upriver. There was a shortcut that would cut off a bunch of bends.
Yeah.
But it was not a good route for snow machines. It was meant for dog team.
So you should have stayed on the river?
Should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, we fought that, but we got through it. And then I can't remember where we stayed that night, actually. We must have camped there somewhere in there, like on the east side of the mountains kind of thing.
And that was just spike camp, just setting up a tent, or?
Well, we only used my tent one night on the whole trip. So I bet you, now that I think about it, I'll bet you we found a little cabin that second night. Because I remember we were kind of on the top of a hill, and there was a valley there, a creek valley that dropped right off in front of us, and we were out there in front of the snow machine in the headlight of the machine with the topographic map all stretched out there, trying to figure out where we were.
Yeah.
And I did not want to go down that hill if I had to climb it again.
No, for sure.
Pulling heavy fuel and all our gear and everything.
Yeah. No Google Maps back then, especially not there anyway.
No,
so.
no GPS.
No, nothing.
Talking with a friend of mine, Jerry Stout, here the other day, he was remarking on that. He said, when you did that, it's incredible. He said, you had no GPS.
Yeah, well,
and you had a fuel cache out there that you had to find.
Yeah.
And if you didn't find it, you were in major trouble.
You probably would have died, honestly, if you didn't.
We would have, because I thought when we did finally find it, that's when I froze my toes. And yeah.
Yeah, and how long into the trip was that? When you?
I think that was on the order of, let me think, at least 8 days in, or maybe even 10 days in.
And you said, I remember reading the story, I think you said the trip itself was planned for a 7-day trip. A 6-day trip.
6 days.
So you thought you were going to do it in 6 days.
That's what we told the RCMP in McPherson.
Oh, wow. Gotcha.
So once the 6 days was up, then they got a hold of my foreman, my supervisor at the job site,
Yeah.
and they said, there's no sign of those guys, and they said they'd be there in 6 days.
Yeah.
We're going to send out a search party. We're going to send out a night search with a Twin Otter plane.
Yep.
And don't ask me what they thought they were going to find, but I guess,
They
to
thought
look
they
for
might
a
find
fire.
something or smoke or
Yeah,
whatever
they'd
could
be
see.
looking for a campfire.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was their plan, and Arnold Nordine was my supervisor, and so they were talking to him, and he said, don't worry about those guys. They've already arranged for Mal McAllister, local pilot there, to fly in and check on them.
They're having fun.
Yeah, they're having fun. That's what.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
I still recall that. They're having fun. Yeah, right.
You probably weren't having that much fun at that point.
No. In fact, when he finally flew in, well, I'll backtrack. So we spent that second night then in the little trapper's cabin.
Yeah.
And that was the last we saw of human sign for days.
Yeah.
And I remember I have a picture of both our machines and toboggans out front of that cabin, and
Yeah.
I have to find that and put that in my
Yeah,
story.
if you, I was saying, if you do find some of those pictures, definitely send them over.
There's
and I'll
not
try
many,
to-
but there's 2 or 3. And it was so prohibitively cold that, my camera was right here underneath my parka, but
Not
it didn't
working.
get used.
Yeah.
I just,
Probably the last thing on your mind. Too.
it was.
Yeah.
It was
of
just
course.
too much of an effort to try and you even just pulling your mitts off to mess with a camera when it's -30 to -50, it's not fun.
Doesn't sound fun. No.
No.
So those days in between when you found the fuel cache and the second night, so that would have been 4 nights or 5 nights in between finding that fuel cache.
Yeah.
Did you run into some troubles? In
We
those
did.
days?
We did. Well, I remember one night we stopped. It was time to try and get some sleep there, and what we were doing was breaking off spruce boughs and making a fairly thick bed of spruce
Yep.
boughs,
For sure.
and then we had a canvas tarp we'd throw on top of that, and then our sleeping bags, and that's how we slept.
Was it warm enough, or was it still?
Oh no. No, I think from my, and that's 48, 50 years ago now, but
Yeah.
from my memory, I mean, I'd be waking up at least every hour, if not every half hour, and turning over and trying to warm the other side, and
It's just cold.
brutal.
Yeah.
And I wore everything I could inside my sleeping bag.
Yeah. That's probably exhausting too, night after night. Probably really takes.
Whoa,
it out of
it
you.
takes, yeah.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I was, like after I'd froze my 2 big toes, I wasn't even thinking clearly. I was hallucinating.
Yeah.
My machine was getting stuck, and
Really. Yeah.
but I'll backtrack.
Yeah.
So we are one night there. We're camped up in the bush off of the river, and we had a fire going, and we were just, I don't know if we'd even brought our sleeping bags up there at that point. We were just sitting, leaning against a big tree, and had a fire in front of us, and so tired that we both nodded off, went to sleep. We woke up and the fire's right out.
-50.
Yeah, and then you're trying to get this fire going, and all the grass was frosty. It was just horrible trying to get it going
Yeah.
again. And but we did, and then it was probably the next night. I wished I could be sure of how long into the trip that was, but anyway, we got up one morning there, and I couldn't get my machine running. And I thought, it's probably the carburetor's iced up. And so we got the fire going. We're sitting there trying to decide what in the world we're going to do. And all of a sudden, I hear a plane. and Mal was coming to check on us.
And you were at that lake at that point?
No.
Oh,
No.
okay. So he was just coming to check on you guys.
Yeah, he had said he'd come in after about 6 days and
And
then
come to-
check on us.
Yeah.
Or halfway through the trip, sort
Yeah.
of. And yeah, it might have been more like 7 or 8 days at that point. But anyway,
It's a long trip.
I knew it was him. And then he flies over us and he dips his wings a little bit, and saw us there.
Yeah.
And he went out of sight. And then it didn't take long. And then I heard the plane coughing and sputtering behind us back in the bush there. And
Yeah.
there was a little half-moon lake that they had landed on back there.
Oh,
And
perfect.
the snow was deep. It was probably 18 inches of snow. And he didn't have skis on that thing yet.
Oh, wow.
I don't think he did.
So you just had the.
Oh,
the
maybe
wheels
he
on
did.
it?
It was a Helio Courier anyway. And they're a performing plane. A
Yeah.
great big long nose on the thing. And
Cool.
so, so then him and one of John Kay's daughters showed up. It was Mal's girlfriend, I guess, if I remember right.
Yep.
And so they brought a box of grub that came from the camp where I was working on the school there, and they had sent all kinds of goodies.
How good did that taste?
Oh man,
After 8 days of struggling.
it was
out there.
incredible.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, I remember pork chops and I remember fruit cocktail in cans and
Sounds
and,
good.
Yeah, I opened up one of those cans and I was spooning that stuff out. I think there's enough sugar in it that you could just kind of spoon it out of there.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh man, is that ever good?"
Give you some energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said to Trevor, when I get back to camp, I'm going to have to buy some of that stuff and have it in my room.
Yep. That's how good it was. Yep.
Yeah. So then they come walking through the bush with this box of grub, and so I told Mal, I said, "I don't know." I said, "I can't get my machine going."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he said, "It's probably just the carb iced up. Those tillets and carbs." He says, "We'll go down there and we'll take the carb off and bring it up here and we'll clean the ice out of it." So we went down, took it off, came up there, and it didn't take him very long. He kind of took the thing apart and
Like you done it before?
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was iced up in there. Take very long, and he had the thing running, and so they headed back through the bush to the plane, and I followed them back there and watched them take off. And yeah, that plane was a performer, man.
Cool.
Taking off around the corner,
Just gone.
gone.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
So that was the end of our human contact for a few days there.
Yeah.
And then, I think it was a day later, we realized that we weren't going to make it to the fuel cache with both machines.
Yeah.
Because we were running low on fuel. So just there again, pull the topographic and looking at how far we had to go and what we thought we needed for fuel. And I said, we can't go there and come back with both machines. Or go there, I guess, because we'd have had fuel there to come back. But anyway, I didn't think we'd make it there with both machines. So
Yeah.
so I said, we got to dump everything out of my toboggan. I had a 10-foot long oak trapper style toboggan, big curved front on it,
Yeah.
and it was basically two 8-inch oak boards, I believe, or maybe they were 10-inch. It was probably 18 inches. Yeah, somewhere on the order of 18 inches wide.
And
It's
that was
wide
like
enough
your
that
skimmer kind of thing. That was what you were using as a skimmer. That toboggan?
yeah, it was a trapper's toboggan, and then it had the canvas carry all on the sides,
Nice.
and
Everything
the,
was enclosed.
and the rope. What do you call it? There's rope down, up on the sides to
Yeah.
hold everything together.
Yeah.
Then there's a rope that goes in the hem on the top there. And I had built a baffle at the back with a couple of handholds in it so a passenger could ride on the back.
Yeah.
So, and it was wide enough that I think you could stand a 10-gallon drum, steel drum.
Pretty handy
In.
for some situations.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I said, And I don't know what we were thinking about, but I mean, we were, I figured somewhere on the order of 35 miles to get to where that fuel was. And I just thought, well, it'll be a quick trip down there. We'll go down there and get the fuel and come back. And we didn't even bring sleeping bags.
Oh, wow. So that's still a fair distance to go down there and come back.
Yeah, it's like 70
kilometers or so, right?
70 miles, yeah.
Or
But
there,
everything
back,
was
yeah.
in miles back then. But
Right.
yeah, so we dumped everything out of my toboggan. We didn't bring our sleeping bags, and Trevor was riding on the back of my toboggan, standing up, and I'm, it's dark because you only had a little bit of daylight in the middle of the day, and then it was dark again, and so we're motoring down the river there. Well, there's another thing that comes to mind at the moment, and I should mention that was prior to all of this, and we were still traveling down the Bell River.
Yep.
And there was just solid caribou tracks. The whole river was just, there had been
one big track.
big herd of caribou there,
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
And then all of a sudden, mixed into and I'm in the lead, and in my headlight, I see these big tracks mixed in with the caribou tracks, and I'm scooting right along, and the first thought was, there's a trapper in here with a bear paw snowshoes on.
Oh, yeah.
Walking down the river.
Yeah.
But then I had to stop and have a look and jump off the machine, and it was bear tracks.
Go figure.
I thought it was grizzly tracks, and it probably was, but I mean, at those kind of temperatures,
Well,
what was a bear doing out wandering around at minus 30?
makes no sense.
No.
For it to be that.
No.
No.
But it could have been. I mean, grizzlies do some crazy things like that. If they're hungry, they'll...
Oh, for sure. I mean, I was seeing grizzly tracks in November this year around this country, but it wasn't.
No, not that kind of cold.
Like, it wasn't that kind of cold yet.
No.
But they do stay out late sometimes, but that's pretty extreme.
Yeah, and when we did finally get to Old Crow, the natives said it could have been a polar bear. They said they do come this far inland sometimes. So
Scary.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I already had designs on them because I was a resident hunter and I wanted him.
Yep, for sure. For sure.
So I looked at those tracks and I made up my mind. Once this trip is over, and I get back to McPherson, I'm heading in here again.
Gonna get that bear.
I'm gonna get that bear.
Yeah, perfect.
And of course that didn't pan out, but so that was one thing, and then I was scooting down there either before that or just after, and all of a sudden there was 4 or 5 caribou, I can't remember for sure, just kind of come running from left to right, and I just about hit one of them. They went right across right in front of me.
Yep.
And stopped, and Trevor pulled up and said, I just about hit a caribou.
Yeah.
But anyway, so now he's riding on the back of my toboggan, and we're heading to try and find this fuel. So we had to go down till we hit the Eagle River, where the Eagle River flows into the Bell. And the Eagle River is the river where the Mad Trapper of Rat River,
I've read that story.
Albert Johnson,
Yeah.
that's where they finally finished him off, was on the Eagle River.
And that's where you were.
That's where we were heading. And this fuel cache that we had was within probably 5 miles of where they finished him off.
Wow.
But that was, years and years earlier. That was in the 30s.
Yeah. So that
Sometime.
country was hostile, to say the least.
Yeah. And he was one tough
SOB.
customer.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, man. The stuff he did. His snowshoes weighed 10 pounds apiece. And he put them on backwards so they wouldn't know which direction he was going. He was a tough guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, that story alone is crazy. I couldn't imagine. And the manhunt, the power that went into trying to find that guy.
Something like 40 days, I think, altogether.
Yeah. And it still took a few bullets to go down.
But anyway, so we hit the Eagle River and we start heading up the Eagle, and every once in a while we stop and pull out the map and look at it and try and figure out where we are there. And
Yep.
And then we finally found a spot where we could get up off the river, so we parked there. I knew there's no way we're finding the fuel until it's some daylight anyway.
Yeah.
And so we parked the machine on the ice, and we climbed up into the bush there, and I was on fire duty that night, so I spent quite a bit of the night with that double-bitted axe there, you know, out there whacking. Nothing big, but
Yeah.
dry alders and stuff like that.
Just trying to keep a fire going.
Keeping the fire going, yeah. And we had to, like, without sleeping bags and everything, we had to keep that
Would've
thing
froze
going.
to death.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. That's crazy to be in that situation. Like, actually, not a lot of people have been in that situation where it is life and death to keep a fire going. I imagine you have multiple times now too, which is
Yeah.
it's a scary thought alone, really.
Yeah. But, I mean, it got exponentially worse after I'd froze my toes. Then it was
So when did that happen? So when did you freeze
the
your
next
toes?
night.
That was the next night?
Next
and that's
night.
when you found the fuel cache was next night?
We'd found that fuel cache the next day, like after we spent the night there, me keeping the fire going, and then as soon as it started to look like some daylight, I said, okay, let's go find that gas, you know.
Yeah.
So we went back down, fired up my machine, and I figured we had to backtrack a little bit, half a mile or so there. So we did that, and then we climbed the bank there and started hiking through the bush, and the snow was, I don't know, it had to be 18, 20 inches deep.
It's a lot of snow.
And no big trees, just small evergreens here and there, and then willows, and
Yeah.
mostly willows, I guess. Some alder, I think, maybe around some of the lakes there, but
Yeah.
so we slogged through the snow for quite a while there, and Trevor, a couple of times, Trevor said, "It's not here. There's no way it's not here." And I said, "We don't have a choice. We got to find it."
Otherwise you got no gas.
I said, "See that little hill up ahead?" I said, "Let's go up to the top of that and see what's on the other side."
Yeah.
Okay. So we go up there, cleared the top, looked, and there was this little lake with 10-gallon red steel drums out in the middle.
That was probably a pretty good feeling when you see
Yeah,
that.
Trevor let out a war whoop like he said, "Now we've got a fighting chance."
Yeah.
That was his words.
That'd be a good feeling.
Yeah.
That'd be a good feeling.
So then it was to try and find a place where we could get the snow machine in there. So we had to go back to our fire spot. We could get up off the river there and then work our way in there, that half a mile or so. So once I found the lake and, you know, see the fuel out there, I just beelined straight out
Yeah.
for it. But in the time that between Mal putting that fuel there, which was, it could have been even as much as 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
It was quite a while earlier anyway, and the snow weight on that lake had you know pushed it down, and then the ice had cracked and there was overflow. And there was, oh, I want to say maybe 18 inches of snow, but the bottom 8-10 inches was slush.
Oof.
And I got stuck. And I had these rubber bottom, leather top felt packs. You probably remember those.
I think I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
I don't remember the manufacturer that mostly made those, but they weren't good for waterproof.
No.
Because that junction of leather and rubber was
That's
not.
some cold stuff too, that slush. Like
Yeah,
that's,
and I'd keep getting stuck, and I'd have, you know, an inch and a half of ice forming on the bottom of those oak boards, and I'd flip that toboggan on its side, and I'd grab my hunting knife, and I'd be carving the slush off of there, and then flop it back down and jump on the machine, but it didn't pull very good.
And did you just keep getting stuck? And
Kept getting stuck. The only thing I don't remember whether I could pull just one 10-gallon drum or two. I might have been able to pull two, but nothing.
And there was five.
There was
gallon-
five.
So you had to do trips back and forth.
Yeah, I did 3 trips at least, if not more.
Yeah.
And then, you know, at some point there, well, it was the last trip I'm coming off of there. And Trevor was running back and forth in the bush there trying to help me, but I was not, I don't even know how to describe it. I hadn't had enough sleep for so many nights that I wasn't thinking clearly, and I kept getting snagged up on willows and stuff and
Well, you're
stuck.
exhausted. Like, your
Totally
brain's
exhausted.
just not
Yeah.
functioning anymore.
So he was running back and forth and trying to help me, get unstuck and stuff. And that last trip coming out of there, I remember saying, my toes are freezing. I'm going to build a fire as soon as I get back there.
Yeah.
But too late. Get back there and I realized.
Oh.
And I, to this day, I don't understand why my big toes froze and the rest of them didn't.
So it was both your big toes.
Both
that
my big toes
were frozen. What moment did you realize, when you got back to camp, or were they cold the whole time, or?
Well, it was when I got back to the fire spot there, and then I realized, well, I said to Trevor, it's your turn to keep the fire going tonight. I said, I'm in rough shape here.
Yeah.
And I was hypothermic. I sat there and my teeth just rattled and I just shook.
Oh.
I was just shaking.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop my teeth from chattering.
Wow.
And
so you were pretty scared at that point too?
Oh, I knew I was in big trouble. And I said that to him. I said, you keep the fire going because I don't know if
Wow.
I'm in bad shape.
Wow.
And so he grabs that axe and he takes off. And I don't think it was 5 minutes, and he came back and he'd broke the head off of the...
It's perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
So he's got to get one by hand now.
Yeah,
Whatever
so
you can pick up and break off.
Yeah, I think I looked at him for 2 or 3 seconds there, incredulous stare, and I said, well, I guess you're stuck breaking dry willows and alders tonight.
Yeah, they don't got any other choice.
No.
Oh,
Somebody made a comment recently and said, you just carve another handle for it, and I thought, yeah,
right.
At 30 below, when you got 2 frozen toes, and you're going to start trying to make another handle for an axe, I don't think so.
Oh, I'd like to see that guy who said that go out there and do it.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, so he was busy all night keeping the fire going. And
Did you get any sleep that night at all?
I got a little bit, and I am sitting there, and when I finally warmed up enough, I guess, that I wasn't, just vibrating from cold and hypothermia, I did nod off, and I slumped toward the fire.
Yeah.
And kind of, leaned into the fire, went to sleep momentarily, probably not very long. And Trevor was away getting firewood at that point. And I woke up to this acrid stink of burning goose down.
And you lit your coat on fire.
My parka was on fire, yeah. Just the hem and because it was such a long 3/4 length parka. And so I wake up and smell this, and I know right away what it is, and I'm beating the parka, and the goose down is flying all over the place, and then I realize, oh my goodness, that pocket that's on fire has a whole box of rifle shells, center fire rifle shells in it.
No. Did they go off?
No.
Oh, God.
No, I still have that box of
the... Oh, no way.
It's all scorched. It was all burned.
And none of the rounds went off.
Norma manufacturer, Norma ammunition.
Cool.
7x61 Schultz and Larson, yeah. But I think 2 frozen toes might have been the least of my worries if
that
whole box of ammo started popping off in my pocket.
I've actually had that happen to me. I was working and a guy threw a box of 22 shells in a fire that we were burning.
Yeah.
And I remember just hearing the rounds start going off until I realized what was actually going on, and I had to go hide behind a tree and dodge bullets for about 10 minutes because I was too scared to go anywhere.
Well, I don't, people have told me that you wouldn't have got hurt, and I don't know. Yeah. But I wouldn't want to find out.
The sound was scary enough for me to just...
20 rounds of center fire going on.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think once one went off, probably they'd all pop off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would think so. It'd just be a domino effect, and it wouldn't be a fun one.
No. No, and I'd been trying to I had got my right boot off and thawing out, trying to warm that foot up first. And it was a nightmare. I was burning my socks, and it just.
So could you see your toes at that point? Like, did you take your socks
No,
off? You didn't want to see
no,
them,
I didn't.
probably.
I remember trying to. I had a combination of two different socks on one foot because I had burnt trying to dry them. I had burnt them,
Yeah.
and but anyway, the left foot took me a long time before I finally got that boot off, and it actually turned out a little bit better. It thawed out slower, I guess.
Wow.
But yeah, so then I said, well, as soon as we can, we got to get mobile and head back to your machine, and get. I said, now I'm under a real tight timeline. I got to find.
So were you? How far were you to completing your trip at this point? Were you getting close at least, or?
2+ days. Let's see. Well, basically 2 days
Before you could complete your trip. Before you.
before we got to Old Crow.
Okay.
Yeah. So we went back, scooted back down to where his machine was, and reorganized everything. Loaded up his, loaded up mine. By this time it was dark again. And we're heading down the, let's see, was that, I should be looking at a map, but I think that we were still on the Eagle River. No, we'd have been on the Bell River then, because I think the Eagle flows into the Bell. It's funny how so many years you forget the layout, but I knew from looking at the topo map that there was a cabin at a place called Salmon Cache.
Okay.
There was a little creek flowed in, and there was a trapper's cabin there, and it showed on the map. And so I'm motoring down the river there and kind of keeping an eye out toward that shore, on the right-hand shore, and there must have been a little bit of a moon, I guess, and all of a sudden I saw what looked like a trail up through the willows up the bank, and I thought, I bet you that's where it is, and so we stopped and pulled over there and climbed that trail, and here's this little cabin.
Oh, thank God.
Oh man, it looked like heaven.
I bet it did.
Yeah, there was a plank door on it, the sawn boards door, and one window, and a sod roof, and a little stove in there.
That little stove must have been
we looked in
fantastic.
there, and I said, let's go get our sleeping bags,
Yeah. And there was there firewood in there for you as well?
There must have been something. Yeah.
Something to burn at least.
Yeah,
to
there
stay
must have
warm.
been. I know there was a chunk of firewood that was probably at least 12 inches around, standing on end in front of the stove.
Yeah.
I don't remember what else there was, but there had to have been some firewood there. And
Probably felt pretty good on the toes when you got that going.
well, yeah, I don't remember much about that night, other than there was these two bunks that were just peeled poles,
Yep.
and I laid back on that bunk. I don't think I even had anything for a sleeping pad at that point right then, but I was out like a light.
Yeah. Well, just probably so exhausted. And
Oh,
cold
totally. And
tired
as
just-
soon as there was a little heat from the stove, then it was like, yeah, I'm asleep. And then all of a sudden, there's this horrible crashing in the cabin, and I woke up, sat up, and here Trevor had been sitting in front of the stove on that chunk of wood, and he fell off. He fell asleep and fell on the floor.
Oh, poor guy. Oh, he's probably pretty tired too.
Oh,
at that
he
point,
was.
I imagine, yeah.
And I just kind of sat up, fell on the floor, eh? Or fell asleep, eh? Or something like
Yeah.
that. And then I was out of it again.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So we slept, as I recall, we slept until about 11 o'clock the next morning. Like,
Yeah.
well
needed.
just sleep of the dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got up, and it was like, okay, it's daylight outside, man. We got to get going,
Yep.
and throw everything back together and get going. And we're heading down the Porcupine there. And up ahead, at one point, the ice got really jumbled. Like it had frozen probably 4-inch thick or more, and then it had broken up again and then refroze, and there was just slabs of ice sticking up all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to make my way through there. It was just ugly. And we were zigzagging back and forth through all of this jumble, and then I look over to the right shore, and I saw a sled track. A
Good thing to see.
dog team.
Yeah.
No, actually not sled, but a dog team toboggan.
Yeah.
And it followed the shore a little bit, and then it went up this long hill. Well, not all that long, probably 100 yards up to a higher bench. So that was the only. Oh yeah, and then I'm looking downriver and I can see steam. So I thought, oh, there's rapids there, and it's not frozen there.
That was your first thought when you seen that.
Yeah, there was steam rising. I thought, yeah, it's open water.
Yeah.
So we pull over there, and we had a trail that we knew we had to take, and I remember we trying to carry these 10-gallon drums of fuel up the hill there.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't have much at that point. I'm remembering at the end of the trip, of a total of 105 gallons of gas, we had used 95. So basically, when we got to Old Crow, we had
no gas.
10 gallons left.
Yeah.
I guess.
Just about out.
Yeah. We figured that pretty good, actually, when I think back on it.
Yeah.
So anyway, it took us a long time. We got everything carried up to the top of the hill, and then I had a great big long rope, and he had his snowmobile had slide rail suspension. It was one of the first slide rail machines, and mine was bogies, and so I pulled him up, him and his empty toboggan, and we got up on top, and we reorganizing everything, and took us quite a while. We're just about ready to carry on, and all of a sudden, hey, there's a guy up there. He's coming toward us.
Oh, nice.
Native. And so he walks up and he says, "We've been keeping this trail open for you guys." He says, "We heard you were coming."
Oh.
He said, "There's open water downstream." And I said, "Yeah, I know. I saw the steam rising there."
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, we thought we better keep a trail here so you know where to go." And
oh, thank God for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now he said, "So we're trapping just a couple miles downriver. We've got a wall tent there, and my partner and I are trapping, and we got dog teams." And so I said, "Well, jump on the back of my toboggan, and
We'll give you a ride back.
I'll take you back there." And yeah, so he says, "Yeah, you'll come and meet my partner." And I don't remember their names, but yeah, anyway, it was kind of interesting. We pulled up there, and the left-hand bank of the river, it was right on a big sweeping turn toward the right, but the left-hand bank was probably 300 feet high. Just a great big clay, steep clay bank, and on the right it was just a gradual flat there, and where they had their wall tent, and as we pulled up, the dogs all started howling away, and it was echoing off of the bank on the other side, and it was just surreal. It was unreal.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. Just howling away. So we walk up through the willows, through the alders there, and tent was on our left, and then kind of back behind it and to the right there was racks and racks of sockeye salmon. Frozen salmon hanging there for dog food. They had netted.
Dogs are eating pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were eating salmon.
So did they give you guys were you guys out of food at that point pretty much from that?
No,
box?
we had food. They did give me a little burbot that they had there.
That would probably taste
Oh,
good.
I knew they were good eating, so I wasn't going to refuse that.
No, those are some of the best eating fish you can catch.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, like that.
Perfect little fire snack.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, right on. So,
Yeah, so they said, "Well, you got to come and have something to eat anyway." So I don't remember what they fed us, but we warmed up in their wall tent and we had something to eat. And then they said, you guys got to stay the night. And I said, "We can't.
Yeah.
We got to keep going." And, I told them I've got these toes that are frozen. I said, we got to keep going. And
Probably you need medical attention.
oh, I did.
Yeah.
But he says, okay, well, he said that, you know, one thing I'll tell you, he says, don't follow the dog team tracks. Follow snowmobile, because the dogs can go on a lot thinner ice than snow machines.
Yeah.
So I took that advice and tried to stay with. Once we did find snowmobile tracks, I guess downstream somewhere between their tent and Old Crow there was a snowmobile trail, but anyway, at some point there, I'm in the lead and I'm just following these tracks, and then all of a sudden I'm off over a little hill and out onto freshly frozen ice. And it didn't dawn on me that, you know, this is thin. This is just frozen.
Yeah.
There was no snow on it.
Probably looked fine.
Well, I turned to try and head back to shore, but all of a sudden the ascent broke through.
Oh wow!
And it was, I don't know, maybe 12, 14 inches of water, and then there was another layer of ice underneath. But my skis were still up on the upper ledge of ice, but my track was on slick, and I kicked a few times there in the water, but there was no traction. I couldn't do anything, so I somehow climbed over the front of the machine and got up on the front there and grabbed both skis and just muscled it back up onto the ice. So scared that I was going to get wet feet again.
Oh yeah.
Oh
I can
man.
Imagine, like, that's at that point of the trip too. You're probably really wanting to get back.
Yeah.
You're probably really wanting to get back, and those little inconveniences.
I think we knew that we were really close there. Yeah. I don't know. We might have even already seen the glow of lights on the ice fog over Old Crow.
Just
I'm
come
not
on,
sure.
just a little bit further.
Yeah,
just a little bit further.
Yeah, my heart was in my throat. I thought, oh no, here we go again.
Oh, yeah, that's a scary thing to happen anywhere.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
But we pulled in. I believe it was on the wrong side of midnight, not by much, but it was past midnight by the time we got there and
into town.
Down the main street.
Yeah, and what town was that?
Old Crow.
Old Crow, right.
Yeah, it's the most northerly settlement in the Yukon.
Yeah.
And there's no roads in there, so it's, you either come in on the river system or you fly in.
Yeah, and so you and your partner were the first people ever to make that trip on Skidoo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that hadn't been done before, so then straight to the RCMP building there, and then we walk in there, and of course they knew we were coming too. But I told them I had frozen toes, and they said, well, the public health nurse just left for a week's holidays.
Oh, good timing.
So the RCMP's wife had to bandage up my toes. And then they said, well, there's a little single axle travel trailer that the school has, and it's got a little wood stove in it, and you guys can bunk in there overnight. So that had come in, I guess, on the river on a barge.
Yeah.
And so we went over there. They told us where it was. We went over there and put on a fire in there, and soon as it actually got too warm. And as soon as it warmed up in there, then my toes just started throbbing. They were just
painful once it warmed up. Really?
Painful, yeah.
And that was probably the warmest they've been in.
I think that was it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had to unwrap everything that she had just done like an hour before.
What did they? Were they black? Like
they were black. Well, they were the color of your jeans.
Really?
Yeah.
They were. Oh my goodness.
They were blue like plums.
Wow.
And big. I mean, like. Swelled right up.
Wow, that probably freaked you out at first when you see them.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't realize until I got a look at them how bad I had fared.
Oof, that's gotta be cold. Oh my God.
The other thing I found out eventually was on my knees I had probably 2-inch diameter frozen patches because I was in the habit of riding on my knee.
Yeah.
I'd switch knees, but I always had one knee on the seat and one on the running board kind of thing.
And so you froze both
I
your
froze
knees?
both my knees. Yeah, just the skin peeled off, and
Wow.
it was a mess. They scabbed up, but they got infected, and it was a long time before it cleared up.
Wow. Was Trevor, did he have...
He had one spot right here on his neck where his zipper kept touching his Adam's apple.
And he got froze
and
there.
he was frozen there.
Wow. That's a long time in cold weather.
Yeah.
Like yeah. Wow, what a trip.
Yeah, so we keep going or what?
Yeah, like, because you said the...
Oh, there's more, yeah.
Yeah, because you got interviewed
Yeah.
by the radio show, which is very cool.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
slept in a bit the next morning there in this little travel trailer, and then when we did get up, then we wandered over to the school there, and we realized that, in those days not everybody had TV.
Yeah.
So they had a TV in the school, and there was a whole bunch of people sitting in there just watching TV, and so we settled in there, and we weren't really talking much with them. We were just watching too, and then somebody come running into the classroom there and said, somebody wants to talk to the snowmobilers. So they said, come on, come. And so it turned out it was CBC from Whitehorse. They had heard about this already. And so they wanted to interview us live on CBC, on the phone. So they talked to both of us, and I don't remember much of what they said. And I really wish I could get a transcript of that call, but
Do you
it's
think one exists somewhere?
I don't know. I tried. I emailed and tried, but they never even replied.
Yeah, for sure.
You would think there'd be in the archives, there'd be some kind
Something
of...
way down there in the bottom of the box. They must have something, for sure.
But one of the questions the guy asked me was, why would you do something like that?
Fair question.
And I thought about it for 2 or 3 seconds, and I said, why do people climb mountains?
Yeah.
So that was my take on that. And Trevor, I don't remember what he wound up being asked, but it's similar stuff anyway.
Yeah. So that's
So then we were there for a while longer, and another native comes in there and says, we just found out there's a flight coming in tomorrow. Well, we got in there on a Tuesday, I believe. And trying to remember exactly. We got in on the day that the sched, they call it, so it was a weekly scheduled flight that would come in once a week.
Yeah.
And it had been there the day before. So they weren't coming for another week, and I thought, oh man, I got to sit here for a week, and there's no public health nurse, and
Yeah.
So then this native come running in, and he said, hey, you guys, he says, there's another flight coming. There's a charter coming in.
Yep.
And it's split 2 ways, and if you want to split it a third, he said, you can fly your machine back to Inuvik, and it was a Twin Otter.
Perfect. Big plane.
I said, yep.
Yep, we'll take it.
I'm in.
We'll take it.
Trevor says, anybody want to buy my snow machine?
Didn't want the trouble. Eh? Well, I guess he already ordered the new one coming in.
He had the new one coming, yeah.
Sure.
So he sold his machine. I mean, all it did was that 315, well, no, it'd be more than that because he came from Inuvik too, but maybe 400 kilometers or something like that.
Yeah, very cool.
He sold it, and then he gave away this makeshift toboggan that he had.
Yeah.
So with help, we threw my machine on the plane and my toboggan, and we flew back to Inuvik.
Nice. Well,
and then I'm just thinking, okay, how can I go back and get that bear?
Poor bear. And you never did make that trip, eh?
No. I mean, I stayed with Trevor. His sister was actually working for the CIBC bank.
Yeah.
There, and so she had a place with at least two other girls they were renting together, three of them, and then Trevor was staying there too. And so I overnighted there, and then in the morning I went to the hospital, and they took one look at my feet and they said, "We've got to admit you."
Mm-hmm.
And I was, no,
Yeah.
no.
I want to go home.
I want to go get that bear.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That was uppermost in my mind.
Yeah. Go back for that bear.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was heartbroken that I couldn't
Wow.
take off back there.
Yeah. No, that's an amazing story.
So they put me in the hospital for 2 weeks, and somewhere after a week or more there, they wheeled me off to the operating room and cut off all the dead skin, and I lost my toenails, and
Oh.
they said, "We're going to save him."
And they saved him.
I said, "Oh, right on."
Oh, the pain. I can't imagine the pain.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they had my covers on the bed. They had it all propped up and tented up so it wouldn't be touching my feet there.
Just anything touched it probably hurt like a
Yeah.
bug or two.
Yeah.
Wow.
And one day then one of the nurses comes. Oh, I had to go to make a phone call. That's what it was. So I got up, and I guess I was on crutches, and anyway I was going down the hallway to the phone booth there.
Yeah.
And this nurse comes around the corner and she says, "You're not supposed to be out of bed." She says, "You get back to your room. Do you want a knuckle sandwich?"
She said that to you?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I would get back to bed, too. That's pretty intimidating.
I never forgot that line.
Yeah.
You want a knuckle sandwich?
Well, she gave it to you straight. She gave you an ultimatum.
Yeah. I said, "I got to make a phone call, and you go back to bed."
Yeah. Back to bed you went. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
But I just wish that I would, in those 2 weeks when I was sitting there basically doing nothing, I could have been writing,
Yeah.
and everything was fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
All the
It sounds like
details.
you recalled a lot of it pretty well, though. Definitely the...
Fairly well, but I know there was a lot of things,
Yeah.
details that I would have
Yeah, for
been
sure.
a lot more.
Well, it's quite the story. It's amazing that you had the drive to do that, and I'd like to kind of go on with that CBC questioner asked you. Why would you want to do that? I mean, you went on all these amazing adventures. Like, that's just one of them. But what do you think that drive is that makes you want to go and be the first guy to do that? Just is that something you always had?
I thrive on adventure.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And like Jerry Stout, you know him.
Yeah, for sure. Great guy.
We were sitting there at work one day, and I was telling him this story from 1975, and at that point, I think that would have been either 2007 or 2008, right in that neighborhood.
Yep.
So, a long time after. Anyway, told him a little bit about the story, not as much as I've related here now, but he said, if you ever wanted to go back and redo that, just a commemorative redo, he said, "I would do that at the drop of a hat." And I said, I guess I didn't say too much at that point, but I thought, it'd be fun to do that again.
And did you do it again?
We did.
Oh, wow. And was it smoother the second time?
Well, we picked a better time of year. We did the last, let me think here, the last 2 weeks of March and the first 2 weeks of April.
So it wasn't
basically.
quite as cold?
No, we saw some 30 below, but not like it was when
Yeah.
we had some nice sunny days, and
Nice. So that's good. So that's
And
pretty
we
cool.
did the round trip. We went over and back. So.
Oh, cool. And did those memories start coming back to you from the first trip as you started
Oh yeah.
doing down the trail?
We even climbed the hill up to that Salmon Cache cabin.
Yep.
And I mean, it was ruined. The whole sod roof had caved in and everything. We couldn't even get in the door, but
Oh, wow.
and memories, boy.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
Yeah, and the other place along there's a let me think here. Surely I'll remember that name. Oh yeah, okay. There was a fur trading post that was in operation in the late 1800s, It's called Lapierre House. And of course that showed on the topographic map. And I remember, I know we stopped there. So that would have been prior to me freezing my toes.
Yeah.
We were coming down the river, and I saw something above the bank there, and I thought, I bet you that's that Lapierre House.
And I'm sure it was.
We went up there, and most of the buildings were all fallen in and everything, but there was one building that still had a roof on it.
Cool.
And it was shingled with 5-gallon metal buckets that they had split and opened up.
Hey, whatever works.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
And the door was about 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
You had to duck right down to get in there.
Nice
It didn't look very inviting. I don't think I'd have wanted to stay in there, but
no. Well, if you're that cold, maybe. But
maybe.
Yeah.
But we did stop there. Jerry and I stopped there again when in 2008. I can't be sure if it was 2008 or 2009.
Cool.
I think it was 08. Because I think 09 I went muskox hunting.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, I'd like to get into the hunting too. You've done some really cool hunts. One hunt, well, you said you've hunted many grizzly bears. You were a big grizzly bear hunter, and I never got the opportunity to do that in BC.
Yeah, I took an even dozen.
An even dozen? That's how many bears you shot? Is 12
yeah,
grizzly bears?
12 grizzlies, yeah.
Yeah, because when I was 16, I remember when the grizzly bear hunt got shut down.
Yeah.
And it was something that I really wanted to get into, but I've never had the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, the last year we had that, the limited entry was 2017.
Yeah, and I hear in Alberta they might be kind of opening it up again, but there's some weird rules or stipulations on it. I don't exactly know what's going on over there.
It's such a controversial thing, you know, that I doubt they're gonna do it.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you start hunting grizzlies? Like when?
I shot my first grizzly, I think, in 1970.
So when you shot your first grizzly was
Yeah,
1970.
prior to going to the Arctic for sure.
And where was that? What country?
Revelstoke area.
Yeah, nice area.
Yeah,
nice area.
Took 3 out of that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just keen on hunting them, and at that point I would have been, let me think, I would have been 17, I guess, probably. Wow. I know I was driving already because I drove up there.
And was that a solo hunt?
No, I was with another fellow, guy that I had just met recently before that, and he was straight out of Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
He had never hardly hunted at all.
That's a good way to throw him into it.
I took him down to a place called Christian Valley in southern BC there, and he killed his first little whitetail buck there, and then he was kind of hooked after that.
That's how it works. I get a lot of clients like that fishing too. I haven't actually really done a lot of fishing before, but as soon as they get that big fish, or with hunting, as soon as they shoot something, it just something snaps inside of them, and you got to drive for it after that. That's how it works. But,
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Yeah. So that first grizzly there, with him, back in those days, you buy a grizzly tag for $10.
Nice.
and I bought this tag, and then I said, well, let's go up there. It was early in the spring, but I said, let's go up and do some scouting and see if we can find some sign. And at that time, up the Big Bend Highway toward Mica Creek, and I mean, that was, let's see, I don't know if Mica was even in operation at that point. It might have been. But there was the old Big Bend Highway anyway, that, you know, the Rogers Pass wasn't built at that point, so you had to go all the way up the Columbia, up to where Mica was, and then back down again.
Yeah.
And so there was an Esso service station at I think they called that 40 Mile Creek. It's about 40 miles north of Revelstoke anyway. And it was way up the mountainside there. That's where the highway was at that time. And we went up there, and there was a trapper there that was running this little Esso station. And I remember he had just caught a wolverine, and it was 65-pound wolverine. Like, it was huge.
That thing would mess you up.
Yeah, it was a big wolverine.
Oh, my.
So we got talking to him, and we said, you know, we told him we were up there just scouting for grizzly sign, and he said, "Oh, I know where you should go. You go back to Revelstoke and you head back toward Sicamous, and you go up the Jordan River Valley."
Yeah. No, exactly. I played hockey in Sycamoose. I know exactly where you're
Do you?
talking. Yeah,
Okay.
I did. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in that.
So
country.
that's what we did. This Randy Foster and I, and we drove. I had a little CJ5 Jeep that I was driving at that point, and it was a '69 CJ5, and I bought it. I'm trying to think. I must have bought it in '70. And not sure, but
so brand new.
yeah, it was. Yeah. I wound up driving it up to Yellowknife when I was working on a hospital project up there.
Oh, perfect.
Drove all the way up there, wound up having an accident with it, and rolled the thing, smashed the windshield out of it, and wrecked the top. It had a metal top, with roll down windows and everything, and I wrecked the top on it, so then I had to order a rag top for it, a canvas top.
Yep.
And anyway, I digress, but so I had this Jeep there, and we drove up the Jordan, and we parked, and the snow was like 8 feet deep up there. But
whoa.
yeah, there was tons of snow. And but it was plowed to a certain point there. I don't know what they were doing up there. Maybe logging. Not sure, but I know it was plowed to where we drove anyway. Yeah. And then it kind of left the Jordan Valley and headed off to the left. So I said, okay, well, let's park here and hike back upriver. And there was a huge old cabin up there. I don't think we even saw that on this trip, but later we did. But it was massive, big logs. I don't know how they ever put them up, by hand in there, but it was huge.
Arm power.
And when we went in, we did see it, but you couldn't get into it. There was a little bit of the roof sticking up above the snow, and
deep snow.
Deep snow.
And you were hunting grizzlies in this.
Yeah,
snow.
but it had, we'd had some warm weather, and so early in the morning you could walk right on top.
Oh, nice.
You weren't sinking in that snow at all.
Yeah.
So we went way up the valley, and then we can see a spot up ahead. Oh, we found one set of grizzly tracks, and I remember thinking that they were really old. But they weren't. It had snowed like the night before, and well, they were a little old looking, but really not what I thought. And it was a big track, and so we're hiking up the valley, and then around the corner on our right, we can see there's an alder slide there, and an avalanche has come down and cleared it off. So there's bare ground in the alders there here and there, and I said, bet you that's where he is. He's feeding in there. And one of us, I can't remember if it was Randy or I think it was Randy, wanted to just head straight through the alders and out the other side. And I said, let's go down around the bottom in case he's in there.
Yeah.
So we did. We detoured down around the bottom, and we're right at the lower end of the slide, and we're looking up, and all of a sudden in the alders there I see this head and shoulders of a grizzly. And we just basically opened up on him, both of us.
Yep.
I think he was shooting a 0.6 and I was shooting that 7x61 Schultz and Larson. And we both fired 3 shots. And the last shot, I hit him just kind of right behind the head in the spine, and he just down he went. And Randy was, "Don't go in there! Don't go in there! Let's wait, make sure he's dead."
Oh, that's a scary thing. You don't want to be walking up on a wounded bear.
No.
Yeah.
So we waited quite a while, and then I said, I'm sure he's dead. We went in there, and then we started working on skinning him, and then while we're skinning him, we look up, and here comes this guy with a fishing rod.
Sounds like my kind of guy.
Your kind of guy. And he's walking on top of the snow, and and he was way in there.
Yeah.
We were in there probably, I bet you 3 miles. And he spots us, and he comes over there, and so he said, "Yeah, I was in here to fish," but he said, I'll give you guys a hand. He said, "I'll carry some of your stuff out, and
perfect.
I'll carry your rifles and whatever." And yeah, so he accompanied us out of there. He probably didn't get much fishing unless he had before that. But
Oh, he's probably scared of that bear.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So at one point there, we had detoured. We had detoured across the creek, and we were heading down the right-hand side. And I remember there was an avalanche had come off of that side. It would have been kind of the south side of the valley, and it had taken out a mountain goat.
Oh.
So there was a mountain goat dead in the avalanche, and a wolverine we didn't get to see it, but it had been feeding on it.
The
there.
mountain goat.
Yeah.
It's pretty mountainous country. Around
Oh,
here.
yeah.
It's very, very rugged.
Yeah, so we got. Oh, it got tough going. Like, it was mid to late afternoon, and the snow had melted, and I was sinking almost to my knees, and I had 85 pounds of grizzly hide on my back.
That's a heavy pack.
Yeah.
That's a heavy pack.
Yeah, and I remember I was just about finished when I got to the Jeep there. The last 100 yards, I could hardly function anymore. And I got there, and I slid out of that pack, and my binoculars around my neck I just about fell on my face.
Oh, really?
My binocs just kind of swung, and I'm like just about...
So much weight on your back for so long. Yeah, threw you right off balance.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was the
so-
first ever grizzly hunt you did.
That was the first one I ever got, and one of my biggest, actually. It's a beautiful bear.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's some big grizzlies in that country. There's some big grizzlies here, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If you don't mind, you were telling me a story not too long ago. If you don't mind sharing it, it's a pretty amazing story. I think it was, you were saying it was in 2013?
The grizzly?
Yeah, the grizzly story.
That one was 2015.
2015, okay.
Yeah, and I'd helped my daughter get one, a record book grizzly in 2010.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So she got that one, squeaked into the all-time records by an eighth of an inch.
Wonderful.
She was just
Oh, really?
eighth of an inch, yeah.
Wow.
Well,
How big was the skull on that one?
They score them by 16th, so it was 2/16 of an inch into the
Nice.
book. But it didn't matter to her. I got a Boone and Crockett grizzly.
That's a pretty cool thing to have.
Yeah,
Pretty
it
cool
was.
thing to have.
Yeah, no, that was, and I was laying there beside her when she was gonna shoot. Probably 240, 250 yards and steep downhill.
Wow.
And this big bear, we'd had to do a huge detour to get the wind right and we were above him, and he walks out there, and he's standing broadside, and he's just kind of looking around, no idea we're there. And she's resting on a backpack, or on a not a backpack, but a day pack, and I had the video camera running, and I remember whispering to her, "You can do this."
Yeah.
"I know," she says. Boom! She shoots. I've slow motioned that video and looked at it afterwards, and that bear was standing almost broadside, and he did a complete sideways flip.
Wow.
And landed on his feet again. He just
barrel rolled.
Just barrel rolled and landed
wow.
on his feet.
Wow.
And then she went to rack another round in the chamber, and she couldn't.
Shaken?
No, it jammed up on her.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And what it turned out to be, I think, was we were on quads, and in the lower part of the valley there was quite a bit of dust on the road. We were way up top in a lot of snow where she killed him, but so her gun had just seen too much dust, and she couldn't get the bolt open again, and they wound up having to take it to a gunsmith to get it freed up. But her boyfriend there, another Brandon, by the way.
Good name. Good name.
Yeah. Oh, you might even know him now. I can't think of his last name. Anyway, she was shooting a borrowed 300 short mag, I believe, and he had a 300 Win mag, and I had a 300 Ultra mag.
Oh,
so
nice.
it was three different 300s
It's
there.
perfect. You guys
Yeah.
are stocked and loaded.
But he got in the action then when she couldn't shoot anymore, and he pumped a couple more into it, and then
Yeah.
it was sliding down the snow slide, and then it started crawling off into the alders there and disappeared. He said we started down there, and we got down, I don't know, 20 yards from the alders. I said to Caitlin, "You stay here. We're going in there." And I bet you we weren't from here to the corner of this room by the time we spotted him.
Oof.
Right there, but he was dead.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be my
Yeah.
biggest fear hunting those grizzlies is
Yeah.
walking up on a wounded bear like that would be terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one I'll have to write up for my book.
Yeah, for sure.
But the one then that I killed exactly 5 years later, pretty much exactly 5 years later.
And that would have been the last one you killed?
Last one I killed, yes. Yeah, we got one more for my partner. The partner that I had when I killed that big one in 2015.
Yeah.
We got one in 2016 for him, but
And then that was it after that.
that was it. Then it was closed, yeah. But that big one that I got, I'll bet you there wasn't. As the crow flies, I bet you my daughter and I killed those two bears 2.5 miles apart.
Wow. Good bear country.
Yeah. Hers was 20 years old and mine was 18.
Oh, good. Wonderful.
Big old boars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So, so then this Travis, well, there's twin brothers, and I hunted with their uncle all through the 70s. We used to fly and, hunting sheep and stuff. Tons of trips together. He's been gone for a lot of years now, but his two twin nephews, their dad, I knew him through Dawn that I hunted with, and he said, you gotta get hooked up with my twin boys. He said they just love hunting. They would just thrive hunting with you. And I said, okay. So there's too many stories. I don't know if I dare keep going.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I'd like to hear that the last grizzly story, and then
yeah, I should concentrate on that. So, but anyway, his twin brother, it was Travis that was with me on my last grizzly, but his twin brother Andrew, I hunted with him first, and I had never hunted with him before. Trying to think if I'd even met him. Yes, I had met him. So anyway, he accompanied me on a goat hunt out by Terrace, and I killed a high scoring record goat.
Nice.
And that's another story. So anyway, Andrew was his name, and he was supposed to accompany me on this grizzly hunt in 2015. And at the very last moment, he had a daughter, and I don't remember all the details, but things changed anyway, and he couldn't go.
Yeah.
So he said, "Why don't you take my brother Trav?" He said, "He's good." I had never met him before.
Yeah.
So the two of them showed up at Mackenzie Junction, and I showed up there coming from Hudson's Hope, and Andrew dropped off Travis with all his gear, and we loaded his stuff in my truck, and we went into Mackenzie and bought a whole bunch of groceries, and away we go.
Perfect.
Heading north up the Almanica Road there. And yeah, I'm just thinking of details here. Okay, so I think there was no issues with that trip. It was another trip up there with Andrew that I wound up in trouble. But or he wanted trouble. Anyway, so we drive up. Plans to spend maybe 10 days up there.
Yeah.
And it was getting toward the end of the bear season. I think we were into June already.
Yeah.
But that high country, I mean, there's tons of snow, you know.
Yeah, it is cold up there too.
Cold too
Yeah.
at night, yeah. So we hunted for a few days, and we were seeing bears, but nothing that I wanted to kill. And then we decided, well, let's leave this valley for a while and go back to the Acai, and we'll check that out. And there was a logging camp in there, and we wound up taking a couple of screws out of the door and, and staying in there.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then wound up killing a big black bear up there. So it kind of took a little while taking care of that. I think, yeah, we even made a trip all the way back down to Seike with the meat to the grocery store there. And I said, I got this black bear, and I need a place to put it for a few days. And he said, oh yeah, we got a freezer in the back there.
Oh, perfect.
So we put all my black bear meat in the freezer there, and then headed back up, and then we headed back up to the Paul River where we had originally been. And we hunt for another couple of days there, and then one day we're glassing to the north, and we spot a bear way up high there, and I knew almost right away that's a big bear, and just watched him a little bit in there, and I said, that's a good bear. I want to get that one. And Travis says, well, okay, let's head up there and get him. Well, I said, I don't think that's going to work, because he's heading over the top, and the wind in the afternoon like that, the currents are upward.
Yeah.
I said, he's either going to get our wind before we ever get there, or he's going to be into the next valley before we get there.
Yeah.
It's a long climb. And I said, what? And I knew the country from previous trips, so I said, we got to get on the quad. Only had one quad that trip, and I said, we got to do about 8 kilometers on this mining road and get around in behind him, and then do probably a couple kilometers hiking till we can look into the basin where he's heading kind of now. And it was a long shot, but it just played out like a charm. Finally get there, and Travis stayed back, and I walked ahead, and I looked into that big basin, and there he was on the other side coming down.
No way.
Yep. So watched him for a little bit, and then he went down into the subalpine growth there, and we couldn't see him anymore. So I didn't really know where he would exit on our side. It's just a kind of a big, whoops.
That's okay.
A big circular hanging basin there.
Yeah.
And there was a couple spots where he could exit. And I said, okay.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah, I said, you stay here. And it was a good vantage point, and there was a little bit of a creek that kind of started right there in the alpine and headed down. And I said, you watch the top of that. He might come out there. And I'm going around the mountain, and I'm going to watch this other spot. And so I motored over there. It was probably 600 yards apart, something like that. And I sat there for a long, long time watching, and finally I couldn't stand it anymore. I thought, something's got to be happening all around the mountain. And so I went back, and he hadn't seen anything. He said, well, let's switch. I'll go over where you were, and you stay here. So he heads back where I had been, and I put my pack down there, and I was all, had something to rest on and everything. And I don't know, I was probably there 20 minutes, maybe more. All of a sudden he walks out. He's about 220 yards, kind of at a fairly steep angle below me. And I was pumped. Like, I knew right away, I want that guy.
That's a good
big
bear.
And I laid down there, rested on my pack, and shot. And he didn't have a clue I was around. He was just standing there broadside, and all of a sudden he's just rolling end over end down the hill in the snow there. And I'm like, got him.
We got him.
I got him.
Yeah.
And so I start running down there, and then he's on his feet and he's running. So I cranked another round in the chamber there, and took a running shot, but I figured out I think I missed him.
Yeah.
And then he's into the thick stuff again. So I ran down probably where he had entered the bush, maybe 150 yards from where I was shooting there. I go down there and I start looking for blood, and then I look around. Here comes Travis running, and we both start looking. And then we picked up a little bit of blood, and then we get down in the thick stuff there, and it's pretty thick. It's not tall trees, but it's willows, and it's small evergreens, and at some point there we stopped and we're talking, and then Travis says, "Well, I can't see blood. I'm colorblind."
Good to know.
Says, "I'm just looking for scuff marks on the ground and stuff."
Yeah.
And but it was tough. Sometimes we'd see a little bit of blood on an evergreen branch, and you'd stand there and look and look. Oh, yeah, there's over there. There's some more.
Yeah.
But it was slow. And then we had these whispered conversations like, "This is not an advisable thing to be doing here. What we're doing, we could get
sketchy.
killed here."
Yeah.
And I knew that. But we kept on going, and then eventually, I'm thinking it was probably 500-600 yards down through this thick stuff. Then he had veered off to the left, and he'd gone back to that same drainage where I had shot him up above in the alpine. And at that point, it was it maybe 20 yards down each side. Maybe not even that, but it was steep. And down in the bottom was a tiny little creek in the snow there that was not more than 2 feet wide, just running pretty good, but lots of snow there beside it. And this bear had gone down there and rolled around in the snow. There was blood all over the place in the snow there, and then he'd walked up the other side and into the thick stuff again. I said, "Okay, well, let's go up on top there and see if we can figure out where he's going." And we get up into the thick stuff on the top. It was pretty much bare slope between the brink of the creek bank and the creek, but up top you're back into these willows and thick stuff, and so we're stopped again, and we're just looking around, and I think we had that same conversation again, and I'm thinking, man alive, this is tight.
Yeah.
He's right here somewhere.
And he probably knows where you are.
Yeah. So, not knowing Travis, of course I knew his uncle, I knew his dad a little bit. But I had never met Travis until we met at Mackenzie Junction.
Yeah.
And I said, "We're in a really tight spot here." I said, I think we need to pray. And I am a believer in the power of prayer. I always have been. So he said, "Yeah, okay." And it was just as quiet as I could and still be audible, and it wasn't. It was just a short plea for safety and for help in a tight spot, and I finished, and almost immediately there was a twig snap down below us there. I would guess it was within 10 yards. And Travis was just, he eyes like saucers and pointing, and he knew that was the bear.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and here he comes. I can just hear him. And he charges out of the bush, and everything is happening so quick. Well, I threw the gun up. I hadn't given Travis a rifle, though I did have a 300 Win Mag that he could have been carrying, but he was from Alberta, or he was he was an Alberta resident at that point, I guess. And I didn't think I should do that.
Yeah.
So all he had was a can of bear spray. And I had bear spray on my waist, and I threw the gun up and I shot, but at the same time I can see Travis disappear over the back toward the creek down below, and the bear just locked on him and was out of sight in a split second after I shot.
Oh,
they were both gone, and I thought, oh my goodness, he's going to kill him.
Yeah.
And I rocked that empty out of there and shoved another one in there and ran for the brink of the bank there to see what was going on. And as I probably could have been able to see something if I could get my eyes open, but I ran right into the cloud of bear spray.
Oh my God.
It was like just a split second recognition of, the air is pink or orange or whatever, and then, oh man.
And the bear's still chasing Travis at this point.
Well, I didn't know what was going on. I mean, my eyes are jammed shut and I can't hardly breathe. I'm coughing there, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I got a wounded grizzly right in front of me that's probably about to kill my partner, and I can't get my eyes open.
Unideal situation.
Nope.
Wow.
No, it was scary, and I'm standing there. Of course, I come to an abrupt halt, and I'm trying to rub my eyes and clear my eyes, and then I hear Travis, and we looked at his tracks later, and like he had just been leaping down that hill, and he said he had his can of bear spray over his shoulder, and he looked behind him, and he said that bear was like 15 feet behind him.
Oh.
But he launched himself and jumped about 15 feet across the creek, and then he was way up the other side, and he's like, Arnie, get down here. He's right beside you. He's right behind you. Get down here. And I said, I can't see. And I got my eyes shut. I can't see.
Oh, wow.
So he just persisted. He said, get down here and flush your eyes in this creek. And it was a while before I could get my eyes open for just half a second or so at a time, and see where I was stepping and stuff. And I got down the hill and just dropped right into the water there and started throwing water on my face.
Yeah.
And my cheeks were just burning, but then I guess I said to him, we were bison hunting together in what was that? 2020, I think. Anyway, a few years back here, and we were reliving all of this, and he said, you're down there throwing water on your face, and then you said to me, look on the can and see how long I'm supposed to flush my eyes.
Needed some sort of information in that sort of situation.
Yeah,
so
yeah. So eventually I could keep my eyes open. I said, okay, well, let's go and finish this. And he says, how come you didn't hit him? I said, well, I don't know. He said, everything was happening so fast, and I threw the gun up and I shot, but we found out later as I was working on him that I had just creased his chest, just touched his chest. Never even, never even put a hole in his flesh,
just
really.
pissed him off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a combination of the first shot from way up the mountain there had broken his left front left front shoulder, or not, yeah, I think it would be the bone below the shoulder blade.
Yeah.
Big bone, but just smashed that. And a combination of him then having to try and run downhill after Travis, and then, running into that cloud of bear spray turned him.
Wow.
And he kind of took a more gradual route, but he walked to my left, back almost to the exact spot where he had charged from the first time.
Yeah.
And in fact, when we looked things over afterwards, we found a chunk of bone down there where he'd been bedded. He'd been licking the wound, I guess, or something, and there was a chunk of bone.
So you hit him good.
Yeah.
Yeah, smoked him good. Wow.
So, so then, like I said, I don't know. I said everything was just happening too quick, and he says, I think you should give me the gun. And I thought about it for 2 or 3 seconds, and I know myself. I know I'm a deliberate kind of shot. I'm not a snap shooter. And him being like less than half my age, probably a whole lot quicker than I was.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, okay. He says, you can have the bear spray. And I said, yeah, I've got bear spray. So...
Got some on my face too.
Yeah. So I got my can of bear spray ready, and I made sure the rifle was loaded and ready, and I handed it to him. And we're standing there just kind of trying to figure out what to do next. And the same exact scenario played out again. This bear come charging out of there. And he stopped. As soon as he got in the clear there, he stopped. Oh, he was close. He was, I don't know what he would have been, 25 feet?
Close.
Yeah,
Very
he was
close.
just right there.
Yeah.
And I just whispered, bust him. And Travis did. He flattened him.
Good. Oh.
Down he goes. And then it was, it was the same scenario as Randy there before. It was, don't go in there. Don't go in there.
Yeah.
Wait. Let's wait. Make sure he's dead.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't going in there anyway until I knew he was dead.
You can't say I blame you after
No.
that whole event.
No.
And he was dead.
He was
when
dead.
He smoked him that time.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'll have to look at the hide someday to see where he hit him, but he put it right anyway.
Good. Yeah, because that's
Put him
not
down.
that close, especially after everything you guys went through. You wouldn't have wanted to
No.
wound him again.
No.
That would have been just as bad or worse.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah.
No, he flattened him. So then it was all the way back up to the top of the mountain there and get our packs and stuff. And we came back and the bear was about, from where he was laying down to a bigger creek in the center of the basin there that this tiny little creek flowed into would have been about maybe 50 yards, 40, 50 yards, but steep.
Yeah.
Steep hillside and all willowed in. And we put ropes on his hind legs. And then I guess I had a rope around the front leg or something and started, getting him started down the hill. And then once he was tobogganing, we couldn't hold him back.
Yeah.
We're digging our heels in and he's just sliding.
Yeah.
And then we got down to the bottom and broke out of the willows, and then it was all grassy there, and that creek was probably about 8 feet wide and maybe 8 inches deep.
Yeah.
And we managed to pull him across the creek, but then there was a little rise, gradual rise, but probably 12, 14 inch rise there, and we couldn't. 1, 2, 3, pull. The bear would just kind of jiggle.
Made no inches.
Yeah, no, we weren't moving him, and so I said, well, okay, we got to swing him around parallel to the creek.
Yeah.
And then reach underneath, and of course he's getting soaked in the creek there, and so we got to reach underneath and grab hair and roll him, and doing that we
That's
managed
hard
to
work.
roll him up on the
It's a big animal.
bank. Yeah.
Wow. And then you got him out of there, and it was.
Well, then Travis built a fire because by this time it's dark. Oh no, we took a bunch of pictures first. Yeah, we got a bunch
Cool.
of pictures before dark.
You have to show me some of those. I'd love to see some of those
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah, they'll be in my story in the book too, and then so then I said, well, you build a fire and I'll start skinning, and I had my rifle laying right beside me. Mm-hmm. That's another point that I didn't mention was that about the time we first spotted him coming into that basin, I guess, he disappeared into the thick stuff, but higher up the mountainside was a sow and twins. And they had already seen him, and they were climbing, like they were getting out of there.
Oh, wow.
But I thought, I don't care. There's other grizzlies in here. My rifle's going to be right beside me.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I worked on that thing all night there. And somewhere partway through the night, and it was cold. Like, during the day there was some mosquitoes and stuff. But they had all gone to bed. I knew that. It was cold.
Yeah.
And something is biting me. It's just underneath my belt, on my neck and stuff. And I said, Travis, come here. Lift my shirt and tell me what's biting me here. He lifts my shirt up and, he says, it's fleas.
Oh.
Got like 6 of them right here, he said.
Ouch. Oh, my God.
So that's what that was. He picked them all off of there, and then I don't know if I got bitten much after that or not.
Oh, that would have sucked.
Yeah. Yeah, so I worked on it all night, and come morning then I had most of the thing boned out. Had the hide, the head was still in it, and the paws were still in it. I don't remember if I weighed that hide, but on the order of 85 pounds anyway.
The hide?
Yeah.
Wow.
With the head and paws in it, yeah. And that was coming out first.
Yeah. So you had to do a few trips?
Meat was secondary.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Who heard that?
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so we had, we loaded up our packs. I had the hide for that first trip. And I had in my mind that we were going to do 2 trips that day, but there was no way.
Yeah.
We had to climb, it was a long, long climb up out of there and then over the top, and there was a couple other spots we had to climb too. And it's just brutal. When you're climbing, it's one step after the other, and you can barely...
Oh, yeah. Especially with all that weight on your back. I mean, a guy just gets exhausted, and then your body can do it. It's your mind that.
And then there's places you're wading in the snow, and it's just
for sure
brutal.
So how long did it take to get that bear out?
I think it was my second trip that was 6 hours to the quad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and I had 98 pounds of boned out grizzly on my back.
You're pretty tough, Arnie. I don't know. I might have croaked after.
It was too. It was all I could do.
Yeah.
It was all I could do.
Yeah.
And when I finally got back to the quad, and Travis had been there for a while before I got there.
Yeah.
And I just kind of turned around and backed up to the front rack on the quad, and set my pack on there and took the weight off. And he said, "I can tell that's heavy."
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. Oh, that's awesome. So that's a successful trip.
Yeah, so like I say, we didn't do 2 trips that first day. We got back to our camping spot there, quadded down there, and then I guess by that time there was still a bit of daylight, so I thought I was gonna, do some skinning, skin the head or skin on the paws or something, and then, but I thought I had put the hide in a garbage bag and tied it up tight because I thought I don't want to be bit by these fleas while I'm packing it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Then I thought, well, I got to take it out of here and work on it. How am I going to stay free of these stupid fleas? I opened the bag, and the only thing left that had some heat in it was the head, and they had all migrated to the head.
Oh, perfect.
They were just thick on the head.
Yeah.
So I closed it up again, and I'm thinking, I got no raid. I got off.
That worked?
Yeah, I got deep woods off.
Yeah.
So I opened the bag, and I went and got my can of off spray there, and I opened the bag, and I just fogged it in there, and then I just tied her up tight.
Closed her.
Waited for about 10 minutes and opened it up again, and they're dead.
Yeah, nice. Good work. Good work.
Yeah, so I did some skinning that night, and then put her away the next morning and headed back up there.
Perfect.
Like I say, come off of there with 98 pounds.
That's a hell of a pack.
Brutal.
Hell of a pack. Brutal. No, that's awesome. That's quite the story, man.
There are people that think grizzly isn't edible, but I beg to differ.
It's good. I've heard it's
Absolutely.
good.
And it's no different than black bear, and black bear is good. So.
I've never tried grizzly.
I mean, that was an old bear, an 18-year-old boar, so I had a lot of sausage made.
Yeah.
Pepperoni and smokies and garlic link and...
Taste turned out good.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, I like it.
Read on. Well, I think we're at our 2-hour mark here, Arnie.
So
I
are
think
we?
we're going to wrap it up here pretty soon.
Okay.
But yeah, before we do that, do you want to tell the people about your book you're planning on writing?
Yeah, I'm working on it slowly. I've got a bunch of stories written, bunch more to write. I don't really know the final outcome, what it's going to look like. Some stories are long, some are quite short.
Yep. And these are all your adventures over the...
Yeah. Just anything that's a little out of the ordinary and abnormal and
Perfect.
remarkable. And
Yeah. It's going to be a good read. I look forward to reading it, and whenever you do get finished.
I've got a lot of hurdles to cross before that's done, but you know, like with publishing and marketing and everything, I'm not. But I have friends that have done it, so I know that it's doable.
Yep. No, I'm sure it'll be doable. I'm sure it'll be good too. And whenever it is done, you have to let me know, and I'll share it, and hopefully we get a bunch of traction from this. So,
Yeah.
No, but thank you very much for coming on and doing the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, this was a totally new concept to me, and
you did
little bit apprehension, but
yeah, I enjoyed it.
Good.
Those are awesome stories, and I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can get you on again in the future. So
yeah, anytime. I've got lots of stories to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have enough for one podcast.
No,
so we'll have to get you on again.
that goat hunt there with Andrew, Travis's brother. That's a good one.
Perfect. Yeah. No, we'll get you on again for sure and hear a bunch more stories. So right on. Well, thank you guys for listening. Subscribe to the YouTube and check out all our channels, and we'll catch you later.
Yeah, enjoyed.